welcome to another episode of the Rhode Island Small Business Coalition's Small Business Forum. I'm your host, David Dadekian. I am a small business owner here in Rhode Island. I own Eat, Drink Rhode Island. And with us today is Democratic gubernatorial candidate Helena Foulkes. Welcome, Helena. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, David. I appreciate it. Good to be here.
It's our pleasure. We're glad to have you. Why don't you start off? I'm sure at this point, hopefully everyone knows who you are and everything, but I'm sure you've got your pitch, why you're running for governor thing. Why don't we start with that and you can tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Well, I have been traveling all over the state for the last 4 years and had the opportunity to listen to a lot of people, mostly in their living rooms and kitchens. And what I hear from Rhode Islanders is they feel like they're being priced out of the state. It used to be a state where it was so affordable and such a great place to live. Number one on their minds is just the high cost of housing. There's not a single city or town in Rhode Island today where someone making $100,000, a family making $100,000 could afford to buy a home.
Correct.
So that is a real problem. Good paying jobs, which I know we're going to talk about, continues to be something that's really important to people to make sure that they can afford to live here. And then the other thing I hear a lot about is this is a state where unfortunately it feels like you need to know a guy to get ahead. And I think changing the culture of this state so it really works for people is very important to me. So I'm excited to be in the race. I really want to make a difference for Rhode Islanders and make this a place that we can all be proud of, because people also love living here. It's a beautiful state. And, our families are here. And often people say to me, I just want this to be a place where I can build a great life for my family. And hope is on our flag. It's our motto. Let's make it be a place where we can all feel proud and optimistic about our futures.
Well said. Thank you. Yeah, especially as we head into the summer and the fall, the weather is beautiful here. It's always great here, but yeah, it's certainly a time of year that people enjoy a lot. And as someone coming from the food world, obviously we've got so much great food and drink, the beaches and history and all the rest. So yeah, it's a good point about housing, especially because as small business owners, a lot of times in hiring, we run into that issue. It's been a common theme from a lot of small business owners is like, I want to hire people, they're not here, or they can't afford to live here. What are your thoughts there? I know we've seen a lot of movement, especially from the former speaker over the last couple of years. What are your thoughts? What can we do there?
Yeah, my specific proposal, and it's all on my website if people want to go look at helenafoulkes.com.
Yep. We will link all that up as well. Thank you. Yeah.
We need to build 20,000 new homes and apartments. And I'm proposing doing that by using the millionaire's tax for a dedicated fund just to focus on a revolving fund around housing. And we know this from looking around the country. When you build enough supply of housing, prices start to go down. And we could do that in much more creative ways than we're doing today. We could do it by investing in historic buildings that are all here, old mills that could be converted to apartments. We could be a really leading player in modular housing, which is starting to crop up. And I'd also like to attract a modular housing company here to make those homes here, so we have more good paying jobs here. So these are the kinds of things. We passed a lot of legislation, but now we need executive action to really make it happen. And so that is my proposal. I agree with you, David. I meet many small business owners who talk about the fact that they're trying to recruit someone, let's say, and with the wages that they're going to earn, they can't afford to live here. So it's a real economic challenge, but it's something that I think will really allow everyone to live here. My mom and dad bought their first home in Rhode Island in 1963. My dad was making $10,000 a year, and they bought a house for $20,000.
I was going to say my parents bought theirs in the 70s, and it was $65,000. So numbers are mind blowing when you hear them. Yeah,
they are. And so it's 2 times how much my dad was making. And now you fast forward, the average family in Rhode Island makes $88,000.
Right.
But a house costs just about 6 times that at $524.
Yeah.
So it's good. Something's got to change.
No, absolutely true. And a lot of small business owners, they want to pay people well. They that's the thing. We want to attract good talent. We want to pay the wages that we want to pay, but you can only pay so much, especially as a small business owner. So you mentioned the millionaire's tax as a way of paying this. Now, as of this recording, the new budget hasn't been signed yet, but I know that in the budget, the new speaker, Blazajewski, has put in a tiered millionaire tax for the next 3 years. Is that what you're referring to, or are you thinking of something else in addition?
No, I'm referring to that. Right now, the plan is for that to be just part of a general fund.
Yep.
I'm proposing we dedicate it to housing. And I actually would love a constitutionally protected fund. There are other states that have constitutionally protected funds. For example, Minnesota does it for clean water.
Okay.
New Jersey has done it for how they use their gas tax. So I think it would be really amazing if we could protect this money and just make sure it goes to housing. And that's what makes my proposal slightly different.
Yeah, it seems to have been in my experience over the last 20 years or so of being in this realm. The General Assembly likes everything to go into the general fund.
Yeah.
But perhaps there's room for change there, especially since we have a new speaker now.
Yes.
Since we're on the topic of housing, which some people don't think of as small business, the other thing a lot of people don't think of, but it's extraordinarily important to small business, is infrastructure. And of course, we can talk about the bridge. We all, we don't need to get into that. We all know what's going on there. But tell us a little bit more about your thoughts for infrastructure for not just the roads and the bridges, but in general. That really covers a wide range of things, including energy and energy costs.
Well, that's a really good point. Yeah. Well, I will start with bridges and roads. So I called from the day I got into the race for Peter Alviti to be fired. Most small business owners that I talked to said, or anyone said, I would be fired if I were doing that kind of job.
Yeah.
And we can get into it, but I really think that Alviti and the governor mismanaged the whole process for getting a new contractor for the bid, and it took us an extra year, basically, the way they handled it. But it's really important that people know that just 5 years ago, we spent $449 million on bridges and roads, and last year we spent $1 billion. And yet we have the worst bridges and roads in this country. And so it breeds cynicism. People are saying to themselves, rightly so, where'd all that money go? I'm glad the General Assembly passed an Inspector General bill. I think we should understand where our money goes. But I can't wait to be governor and bring in a fresh new face to run Rhode, someone who has no connections to Rhode Island or all the players and is really willing to clean shop and make sure that the we're saying really goes to where it needs to be going in bridges and roads. The other thing I hear often from small business owners, to your point, is the cost of electricity feels out of control. I most vividly remember speaking to a woman in Woonsocket who owned a diner. And I'm sure this is not news to people watching your show. She said to me every night when she leaves, she unplugs every single appliance in the shop so that she's just trying to minimize her expenditures. I've also had a guy last night who's a small business owner. He said to me, how could it be that my delivery charge is now twice the actual electricity charge? So these are all great questions. And, we have a monopoly driving electricity in this state owned by a Pennsylvania-based company. If people want to go look at the policy proposal I have, I call it no false choices. I believe what the governor's done is try to create a false choice between lower energy prices and keeping the climate green. In fact, the most energy efficient and most affordable way to get our energy is by renewables, wind and solar.
Renewable is the cheapest source of electricity. I that is a factual point. I think it is difficult to separate the two, and I think it links also into the climate and other things of that nature. I mean, we don't have to get too far into those weeds, but obviously extraordinarily important. It's extraordinarily important to a lot of small business owners. But yes, renewables are the cheapest. If you look at the tier structure. Renewables are the lowest cost electricity. Now, deliverables, the distribution cost, that's a different issue. Exactly. But hopefully that can be addressed as well.
Yes, and I think I'll say again, I think it's why executive leadership really matters. The governor was really thrilled to sign the Act on Climate legislation. I'm so glad he did in 2022. But you need to have a plan.
Yeah.
And there was no action taken. And so here we are. Yes, Trump's been crazy and, turns off wind when it's 90% complete and all that nutty stuff. But we're here where we are because in large part, there was no action plan put together. And so that's the job of the governor, to be transparent with the people of the state and really working on their behalf.
Well, it's also a large chunk of the renewable energy world is small businesses. It's made up of smaller companies that are doing small
Yes.
solar projects, wind projects. Obviously, there's the big ones like out in the ocean, obviously,
Yeah.
but there are a lot of small businesses that run these projects, and they need our help. Not only for the support, but also because of tariffs and all things that we can't control here in Rhode Island. Things that we don't have the ability to change. So how do you look at I know I've looked at your website. I know you've talked about the ocean economy and the blue economy, the green economy, all those nice terms that people throw about. How do you see growing some of those things here? Because a lot of those businesses are small businesses, or at least start small and grow much bigger.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So I would say that I've always believed the best way to grow is to lean into your strengths. I would say that actually personally and
Yeah,
professionally.
sure.
And so I've really been reflecting a lot on what is our greatest strength as an economy in Rhode Island. And from my perspective, it's the ocean economy. Some people call it the blue economy. So anything connected to 400 miles of coast, which we have.
Yeah.
We have a really unique bay. Narragansett Bay, because of the depth with which it goes so quickly, is very attractive to a lot of businesses that are doing research. We've got URI, which is doing amazing things at that school, attracting also small and medium-sized businesses. We've got the Naval War College. We've got the defense tech sector. So we have a lot of good things going on, but there's more we could do. I proposed a $150 million bond to invest even more in the infrastructure related to the Bay. If you go to Quonset, there's more improvements we need to make. Something as simple as making sure that the companies that want to do the research can get access into the Bay easily with their equipment. That's what we could do. There's also an incredible opportunity because we have had connected sensors under our bay for 40 years. Those could also be now connected to the wind farms. And think about it as a whole, it's almost like a cloud that's underwater, where
Right.
we can get access to data and make it available to the small businesses and companies doing work in that sector. So these are the kinds of things I want to be able to provide. What's amazing about this for Rhode Islanders is that this is something you don't compete with 50 states on to win a contract. You compete with maybe 8 states that have the capabilities that we have. Connected to that too is making sure that people have the skills to do the work. So I've also proposed a $100 million career and technical education fund.
Yeah, education, obviously, very important.
Right. So, think about all of your small business owners. We want to make sure that kids are graduating from high school with a sense of their own joy and purpose, but also maybe being able to get a great paying job right out of high school. And there are amazing schools doing this work today. I want it to be more available for more people. Another element of my plan that I think affects all size companies is making sure that people can show up to work, and an important barrier to that often is childcare. So today it costs more to send your child to daycare than it is to an in-state college tuition.
Yeah.
And that holds people back from being able to work consistently. These are all things we want to create to really make this an environment where Rhode Island is open for business. It's a place where if you have a business, you can grow. It's easier to start a business. And then this is the way we lift people up and make sure they have access to great paying jobs.
Well, you just talked about childcare being a barrier for some people. Transportation is also a barrier for some people.
Yes,
A lot of our small business owners, their employees, and the owners themselves need public transit. And obviously, RIPTA has had some unfortunate, really bad issues over the last few years with underfunding. What are your thoughts with that with RIPTA?
Well, I mentioned at the beginning that one of the opportunities I've had in the last 4 years is to go around the state and listen. And it's different than when you're in a campaign, you get to listen more. And I went to many RIPTA listening sessions where people show up. The first one I ever went to was on a freezing cold night at URI. About 50 people showed up in a very small room. And RIPTA officials were there, but one by one, people in the audience shared their stories about what it would mean to them if those bus routes were cut. And it was really devastating because mostly what people said is I won't be able to get to my job or to school, and I'll probably therefore lose my apartment. And that wasn't a campaign year. And they didn't have a big lobbying faction behind them. And so that year they lost $10 million in funding, which meant but many bus routes were cut. Now,
Right.
meanwhile, we were spending $4.5 million a year on two permanent tow trucks on the Washington Bridge, just in case there was an accident. So I know in a budget where, remember, we spent $1 billion on bridges and roads, we could have found $10 million that year. Now it's an election year, so they put it back in the budget, but we need consistent funding for RIPTA, and that is part of my proposal too, because people really need to get to their jobs. It's very important. And it's the wave of the future. If you think about young people,
Oh yeah.
they don't want to be driving cars, and cars are expensive. To own a car costs someone roughly $8,000 or $9,000 a year. To be in public transportation for $800. So important for the climate, and it's important for the economics for everyone.
Yeah, as someone with two daughters driving, you're estimating a little low on the cost of a car plus insurance. Unfortunately, it's higher than that. And gas. Right, we can discuss that as well.
Right. That number was before gas. You're right about that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up, because we talked about the ocean economy, our fantastic fishers and seafood farmers here in Rhode Island. It's a huge part of our strength. I think, like you said, playing to our strengths, obviously food and drink. I mean, not just saying it because it's my world, but I think hospitality and that end of things is enormously important to our state. How do you see supporting that? How do you see, what we can do to lean into that?
Well, I agree with you. Hospitality, tourism, it's one of the biggest employers in the state. And some of these issues we've been talking about, to your point, really address those kinds of small businesses. But I also have a proposal as part of my jobs proposal around the fishermen in particular. I spent some time in Galilee a couple months ago, and I was really struck by what I always do when I meet with people is I say, I'd love to know who you are, what you do for a living, and one thing you'd really love the next governor to do. What I heard from these fishermen was how hard their lives are.
Yeah.
And they're not people that complain. Right? They really weren't complaining.
No, it's a hard job. It's a hard life. I mean, I work with them all the time. It's a very difficult job.
And there are no young people going into it.
No,
but most of what I heard was in Galilee, we need investment in the infrastructure and the port, but also something very simple. In Galilee, because that wastewater treatment plant in Scarborough is really overflowing with the local needs. Right. They truck all of their wastewater to Cranston. That's really expensive. Yeah. They said, we need wastewater treatment. They're like me. They would like to get the CMC politically appointed council, which can overrule the experts. I think that's a really great idea, and I totally support that. And I have also supported making sure that fishermen, especially in the East Bay, that we set up cooperatives so that they can have easier access to selling their fish and giving them more ownership in the whole process. Because that's an industry that 100 years ago in this state was so important and vital, and it's dwindling. And we need to build it back up. What I often say to fishermen is, one of the reasons you're not getting big investments is you don't have lobbyists. And that's a really sad thing. This gets back to this you gotta know a guy culture. We should be working as a state for everyone here, not just the people who have the power, who have the lobbyists behind them.
Well, I mean, that's how the coalition came about. I mean, we realized that as individuals, we're small businesses, one sometimes single owners, small, 20 people companies. But as a group, we are the largest sector in the sense that small businesses make up the majority of the businesses in the state. We're bigger than a CVS or a Fidelity or things of those natures. To have that voice is extremely important. It's funny, the NOAA guy thing, it's one of those weird things. I think we have to make that more positive. Like it's good.
I so agree. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. And it gets back to, I'm really an optimist at my core. I mentioned at the beginning, people love this state. And how do we make, or the other one is like when people say, oh, that's so Rhode Island. Yeah. And sometimes they mean it negatively.
Yeah, I know.
To make that a positive. Oh, that's so Rhode Island. That's what we need to do as a state.
Absolutely true. Well, I know you've got a limited amount of time, so we've got to get going. But is there anything that we didn't touch on you wanted to add before we go?
No, I so appreciate the time, David. I appreciate all that you do and the whole community of small business owners. You are the heartbeat of this state. And I have a lot of things I'd love to accomplish, but I also need to know more examples from you when I win about what I could do to make it easier to do business here in Rhode Island. And I would just say to everyone listening, the primary is really, really important. It's September 9th. That's the date I'm focused on. The Democratic primary is what I'm running in, and I'd love everyone's support.
Absolutely. Yep. Wednesday, September 9th. We'll link that up below so you can check where your polling places are and things of that nature. Thank you very much for your time today, Helena. That's really great talking with you, and we'll keep talking. So thank you. Again, Democratic candidate for governor, Helena Foulkes. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
And thank you, as always, for listening or watching. If you're on YouTube or on a podcast, we appreciate likes, comments, subscribes, all those things you're supposed to do with this media. Get it out there and make sure you vote. Like I said, we'll link all that up down below. Until next time, thanks, as always, for watching or listening, and take care.